Welcome to this edition of the Head Dad Podcast. I'm your host, Cam McKinney. This is episode number 66 of the podcast. And in this episode of the podcast, I'm talking about Kansas City Chiefs quarterback Patrick Mahomes, who, since becoming the quarterback for the Chiefs, has been arguably the best quarterback in the National Football League. Since the Chiefs traded away Alex Smith and made Pat Mahomes their starting quarterback, Pat Mahomes has godly-like numbers. 60 touchdowns, 13 picks in 19 games, a 66 completion percentage, a Pro Bowl appearance, an MVP. He was named Offensive Player of the Year. And, by the way, he is the only person not named Tom Brady and Peyton Manning to have thrown 50 touchdowns in a season. Let me say that again. He is the only person on planet Earth in its existence to have a 50 touchdown season not named Peyton Manning and Tom Brady. Those are pretty big accolades at this point in the young man's career. And I think some people are uncomfortable by that amount of success this early in a player's career. I think that the fact that he is already a top-tier quarterback in the field with Tom Brady, Aaron Rodgers, Drew Brees, maybe Big Ben, the fact that he is already in that discussion, I think makes people a little uncomfortable. I think about the rise of Mike Trout and how people were making comparisons to Mickey Mantle and how uncomfortable that makes people, because I think fans and I think former athletes, they like guys who went through the struggle. They like the guys who developed. They like this idea that Tom Brady was a 6th-round draft pick, and then the first 3 Super Bowls, he was a game manager by some people's expectations, and then in 2007, he mastered his craft and threw 50 touchdowns. No, Pat Mahomes in his first year as a starting quarterback put up 50 touchdowns to 10 interceptions with a 65 completion percentage. He right away looked that good. And I truly believe this, old school fans are uncomfortable by that amount of success in the first year of a quarterback's career. They want the struggle. I mean, he wasn't a rookie. He had sat down a year. But when Aaron Rodgers first became the quarterback from the Packers, he didn't put up those kind of numbers. He was really good his first year with the Packers. But he has since developed into the Aaron Rodgers that we know and love. And Aaron Rodgers sat 3 or 4 years behind Brett Favre. Pat Mahomes sat a year behind Alex Smith. And then the minute he becomes the starting quarterback for the Kansas City Chiefs, he looks like one of the best, if not the best quarterback in the entire league. And I think some people just don't want to say that. They don't want that to be the fact, so they're ignoring it. They don't want that to be the case, so they're not giving him the credit he deserves. I think going into this year, there was an unhealthy amount of people who I believe wanted Pat Mahomes to go through a sophomore slump because they don't want to put him in that first tier of quarterbacks. They want him to be more of in that Dak Prescott range, that Jared Goff range, that Deshaun Watson range. No, he is a top 5 quarterback through any measurement. He is with the Bradys. He is with the Brees. He is way above the Kirk Cousinses of the world. He is a top-tier quarterback, and I think that makes an unnaturally amount of people uncomfortable from the get-go. And I make the Mike Trout comparison because I think it makes people uncomfortable that a guy is so good from the start, and he has never had a moment where Mike Trout does not look completely and utterly dominant. And even in this year, Pat Mahomes looked like he's getting better. He has 10 touchdowns with 0 picks, and he won that duel against Lamar Jackson, and he went to the AFC title game last year, and he's probably going to win a Super Bowl in the next 2 to 3 years. If I'm going to make that prediction, I believe Pat Mahomes is going to win a Super Bowl with or without Andy Reid as his head coach. I think Pat Mahomes is going to win that ring eventually, and that's the one thing that they have on him right now. The one thing you have on Pat Mahomes is he did not win that Super Bowl his first year as a starter, and that's why Troy Aikman's comments, I think, are so petty. Troy Aikman, when asked about the comparison between him himself and Pat Mahomes, which, by the way, I think is utterly and completely ridiculous, because I think Pat Mahomes has the chance to be one of the best quarterbacks ever, and I don't think Troy Aikman quite lives up to that hype. Again, Troy Aikman's best season as a quarterback statistically was 23 touchdowns. In his first season as a starter, Pat Mahomes put up 50 touchdowns. I get it. We love winners. We love Eli. We love Troy Aikman, but Troy Aikman is way closer to Eli Manning than he is to Tom Brady. Pat Mahomes has a chance to be in that Tom Brady, Aaron Rodgers level of success that Troy Aikman has never, ever touched and has never been close to touching. And by the way, Pat Mahomes is not playing with Michael Irvin. Pat Mahomes is not playing with Emmitt Smith. And if you were going to make the case that he was with Kareem Hunt and Tyreek Hill, look at the season Pat Mahomes is having right now without those two guys. Tyreek Hill is no Michael Irvin, and Kareem Hunt was no Emmitt Smith. This is true success that Pat Mahomes is having that I don't think Troy Aikman ever came close to touching. And the fact that that comparison is even being made is ridiculous. But what's even more ridiculous is Troy Aikman balking at that comparison by saying, call me back when Pat Mahomes has 33% of my Super Bowls. For those of you who want me to do the math, Troy Aikman had 3 Super Bowls, so Pat Mahomes needs to win a Super Bowl before Troy Aikman, of all people, will even allow himself to be compared by Pat Mahomes. I think this is petty, but I think this is natural by Troy Aikman, who knows the only thing he has on this kid about the quarterback position is the fact that he won a Super Bowl. And the fact is, yes, Troy Aikman had a lot of impact on those Super Bowl teams, but he cannot fully control winning a Super Bowl, and I think he knows that. Pat Mahomes has natural gifts that Troy Aikman does not even come close to. The fact that he can sling the ball, the fact that it looks like wherever Pat Mahomes is on the field seems to be in the red zone. He is in danger of scoring a touchdown on the opposition. 60 touchdowns in his first 19 games. Troy Aikman did not even throw 200 touchdowns his entire career. So I understand that Troy Aikman's like, I played a really long time. I won some Super Bowls. This is the thing I have on this guy. But to even say, I won't even... That comparison has no merit until that guy wins. I think that's laughable. I think that's Charles Barkley's anti-3-point shooting stance in the NBA. I'm sick of these old veteran guys who just have something on these guys and they're acting like they can't even be compared. They'll pretend like it's a completely different game, which in some instances it is. But the fact of the matter is they don't want to say a guy is greater than them. It's as easy as that. Troy Aikman's greatest fear is that Pat Mahomes really is that much better than him. And guess what? That fear is realized because Pat Mahomes will be that much better than Troy Aikman. I also think these analysts love to tear down superstars when they're in a vulnerable moment. Look at Rex Ryan calling Baker Mayfield overrated after 3 games this season? He's calling him overrated. Baker Mayfield threw the most touchdowns by a rookie quarterback ever. Yes, he has 19 picks. Yes, he has to work on things. But Rex Ryan is so fast to say overrated. People want to do that with Pat Mahomes. It's a fact. They do not want the meteoric rise to be sustainable. They want to see a guy go through the struggles. They want him to so-called earn it. Pat Mahomes has earned it. He is great right now. And again, Rex Ryan definitely wants to go on TV next Monday and go, Pat Mahomes is overrated, because it's also boring to talk about how good Pat Mahomes has been. It's boring. It's fascinating to watch. It's great for games. It's not good for the business of giving hot takes. It's not good for Stephen A. Smith or Max Kellerman to see how good Pat Mahomes is, because as great as these people are, it doesn't help these analysts by, again, it's boring to say how great Pat Mahomes has been because there's nothing interesting to it. He's just been good. That's really all you can say about him. There's not this narrative of, they want the sophomore slump nonsense. And Who cares? He is great now. Instead of worrying about the comparisons to Troy Aikman, instead of Troy Aikman worrying about that, he should just be thankful that he gets to be entertained weekly by Pat Mahomes, who is helping football. Because without Pat Mahomes, who is the next face of the NFL? Have we even thought about that before the criticism of Pat Mahomes is coming out? Like Troy Aikman, has he even thought about it? When Tom Brady's gone, when Drew Brees is gone, when Andrew Luck walks out of the NFL, guess who's still going to be there? Pat Mahomes. Yes, Jared Goff is there. Yes, Deshaun Watson will be there. Yes, Baker Mayfield is there. But there will be a clear number one of the pack, and that will be Pat Mahomes. And we are witnessing that. But we want to tear that guy down for some reason. I just think the tearing down of the superstar athlete has just become boring over the years. We are watching greatness, and we don't want to call it what it is. It is great, and we kind of want to see him go through the downs. I think the worst thing that could happen for these analysts, honestly, is if Pat Mahomes gets the Super Bowl this year. Because if he gets it this year, then they're all going to have to admit how great he is. Troy Aikman's going to have to eat his words. He is saying Super Bowl because he knows maybe that won't happen. He's just saying the one thing Pat Mahomes might not do in year 2, and that's win a Super Bowl. And that's why that critique is ridiculous. Does Pat Mahomes benefit by the passing NFL that we live in today, where the running back really doesn't matter all that much? Yes, he absolutely does. But that's still, you can't ignore the fact that other people in this NFL are also not all throwing 50 touchdowns. The guys who are is Tom Brady and Peyton Manning. He is in that company. So while you can say, oh, look, they're all having godly-like passer numbers, and Matthew Stafford is throwing up humongous amount of yardage that nobody cares about. But you can say 4,000 yards, whatever. You can. There's a way to downplay what quarterbacks are doing in this generation. You cannot downplay the fact that through 19 games, Pat Mahomes has 60 touchdowns and 13 interceptions. That is insanely nuts. I get it. Like Matthew Stafford throwing all that yardage, that doesn't really mean anything to me. Because in this generation, they're all throwing yards. You can play that game with some of these quarterbacks. You cannot play that game with the 50 touchdown number, because the only other two guys who have done it are two of the greatest of all times. Tom Brady and Peyton Manning. You cannot play that game with that number. Again, you can do it with the yardage number. You can do it with a lot of the stats in today's NFL. Like, oh, this is a whole new league. Well, guess what? Jared Goff isn't putting up 50 touchdowns. Deshaun Watson is not. Andrew Luck is not. Everyone else is not. But Pat Mahomes, Tom Brady, and Peyton Manning. That is all-time great, and it makes people uncomfortable about how all-time great that really is. I'm comparing what Pat Mahomes is doing a little bit to like what Steph Curry is doing. Yes, it's a new NFL where the passing people are dominating. And Steph Curry, it's a new NBA where the three-point shots are going like crazy. And Steph Curry is hitting all-time great threes, and he's shooting them at a rate that not a lot of people have done. Yes, Ray Allen and Steph Curry, there's like a separation between the two, right? Because Ray Allen wasn't allowed to shoot as many threes, but Ray Allen is, by many people's metrics, the best three-point shooter until Steph Curry came in. I think Steph Curry is a better shooter than Ray Allen. He's also taking more, but he's also hitting more at a higher rated percentage. Pat Mahomes is throwing more touchdowns, clearly, but his completion percentage is like 66%. So in today's NFL, yes, it's a different game, but Pat Mahomes is dominating it in a way that other people are not. Like other people in the NBA, you can say it's a three-point shooting madness. They're not all shooting it as well as Steph Curry or Klay Thompson. I mean, those few people are rare. Pat Mahomes is in that rare level of quarterbacking in today's NFL where, yes, he is getting a big benefit by the fact that it's a passer's league and we're trying to protect the quarterback and all that nonsense. But you can also not ignore the fact that the numbers Pat Mahomes is putting up is uncommon even in those circumstances. Like the numbers Steph Curry is putting up in the NBA. You can act like it's common, but it's very uncommon because, yes, James Harden is taking the same amount of threes as Steph Curry, but guess what he's not doing? He's not hitting them at the same rate. Yes, Jared Goff is playing the exact same game as Pat Mahomes, but he is not getting it in the end zone at that same rate. So for that, you cannot put that against Pat Mahomes. You can say the NFL is built for them all to have this huge number of success. But the fact of the matter is, they're not all having that huge number of success. And again, the last time I'm going to say it, the only people who have thrown 50 touchdowns in my lifetime and forever have been Tom Brady, Peyton Manning, and Pat Mahomes. And that means something to me, and it should mean something to you. Another thing I hear is that he has Andy Reid, like Andy Reid's an offensive genius. You know what I mean? Like the Matt Nagy's, the Doug Petersons, they all have that Andy Reid system. Guess what? When Donovan McNabb was with Andy Reid, was he that great? No. Was Alex Smith that great? No. Maybe this is the perfect combo of coach and quarterback. Wow, have we ever seen that before? Tom Brady, Bill Belichick, Peyton Manning, Tony Dungy, like quarterbacks, guess what? They benefit from having great coaches. That is not something you can diss Pat Mahomes for having a great head coach. Maybe Pat Mahomes would not be putting up this godly-like numbers in Cleveland. Maybe he wouldn't. But I'm also not going to put that against him that he is, because he's putting up those numbers at a rate that the other guy who was the starting quarterback there with a lot of the same players, Alex Smith, was not putting up those numbers. Pat Mahomes is the one putting up those numbers. Pat Mahomes looks like the next face of the NFL, not Alex Smith, not Donovan McNabb. And by the way, I don't even think Andy Reid is that much of a genius. He doesn't know how to really manage the clock. He hasn't really won that many big games. If he ends up winning the Super Bowl, I think a lot of it is going to have to do with the fact that he has Pat Mahomes as his quarterback. Again, I don't think Andy Reid is one of the best head coaches of our time. I just don't. I think he's pretty good on offense. I think he's, again, oblivious to defense and oblivious to manage the clock. He's not Bill Belichick genius level. But I think he is a good coach, and is Pat Mahomes benefiting from having a good coach? Yes, but I don't think that is a fair diss to Pat Mahomes that he has Andy Reid, this offensive genius, because with Donovan McNabb, he wasn't that great. With Alex Smith, they weren't that great offensively. They won a lot of games. They went to 5 conference championship games, but he didn't win those big ones. And if he wins the big ones now, it's going to be because of Pat Mahomes. That's the one difference here. The one difference between those Chiefs teams with Alex Smith and the Chiefs teams now is Pat Mahomes. So I think Pat Mahomes is the better of the two. With Belichick and Brady, you can debate which one has the bigger impact. I think Pat Mahomes has the bigger impact on the Chiefs' overall success than Andy Reid does. Pat Mahomes is already better than most of his peers. Jared Goff, Deshaun Watson, Dak Prescott, and Carson Wentz. He is better than all of those people by a wide margin. He is the next face of the NFL. I believe that when Tom Brady retires, the new face of the NFL will be Pat Mahomes. And people are going to have to get used to that. And they're going to have to give him the credit I think he deserves. Yes, I think, again, younger fans, I think, are more into it. I think the older generation are like, oh, he's putting up these numbers because it's a new offensive league and all this nonsense. We are watching greatness. Can't we just appreciate and enjoy the greatness? I feel like I can't enjoy this because you're all like, oh, Tom Brady's way better than Pat Mahomes and he's not even on that list. Or when I see these shows not even put Pat Mahomes in their top 5. A lot of last year they were doing that. Right now in the NFL, there is no doubt in my mind you can't ignore Pat Mahomes in that top tier list. You can do it until he wins the Super Bowl. You can do it until Troy Aikman wants you to do it. Pat Mahomes is here, and he's not going away unless injuries or other circumstances make that the case. But for now, Pat Mahomes is here. It looks like he's going to be here for a while. So I think we should all enjoy it while it lasts because we are seeing something special. And it's extraordinary. He's only sat a year, people. And now Adam Schefter is reporting that possibly next year Pat Mahomes will have a $200 million contract, the highest paid player in the history of the NFL. Guess what? That will be earned. And maybe he'll be coming off the Super Bowl and maybe he won't. But whether or not Troy Aikman wants to acknowledge it or not, Pat Mahomes is on another level here, and we need to start to enjoy it more. And even, I'm sorry, that comparison that he was annoyed by that just annoys me, because I think deep down, Troy Aikman knows he's on another level, and he's just ignoring the fact because the only thing he has on Pat Mahomes is a ring. Enjoy it while it lasts, Troy Aikman, because I believe Pat Mahomes will be getting that ring, and he'll have the 33% of your Super Bowls, and then you're going to have to acknowledge that he's one of the best quarterbacks playing right now, and that will be a moment I will enjoy. Because for Troy Aikman to ignore the fact that in 19 games, somebody has thrown 16 touchdowns and 13 picks with a 66 completion percentage, a Pro Bowl, an MVP, an Offensive Player of the Year, and the only human being other than two of the all-time greats to throw 50 touchdowns, for him to ignore that, I think is laughable. The Phenom Pat Mahomes is not going away anytime soon.